Can you change the discs and pads on your Porsche 911 by watching a YouTube tutorial on how to change your discs and pads? Now, I'm not a mechanic. I don't have a mechanical bone in my body. I'm an IT guy. I just write code all day. But I thought to myself, before I send my car to a garage and have this done, why don't I see if I can follow along with a tutorial on YouTube on how to do it? So that's what we're going to do today, guys. I've ordered a set of Brembo discs and pads from Design 911. Thank you guys so much for that. And they've arrived today. So let's see if this works. Wish me luck, stay locked, and let's see if we can get to the end without screwing it up. All right, let's get into it.
Pulsation in your steering wheel. It could also be a slide. Now we've looked at the things that we're going to be installing today. Let's take a look at the tools we're going to need for this DIY.
Tools.
For this job, we have a couple tools we're going to need, starting with a hammer and a punch, a 3/8 ratchet,
hammer,
a 3/8 torque
Have
wrench,
that? Yeah.
A couple different flatheads and Phillips heads, as well as a T55 and a 10mm hex,
Do you have that?
a 10mm socket, an extension,
so.
and a 19mm for our lug bolts. Some nice to have is some caliper hangers.
Yeah.
We have a set of pliers that will help turn the pin that holds the pads in place, a wire brush, and then a dual piston
a wire brush.
tool. In addition to that, we have to my right a 1/2" impact to take off the wheels, and a 3/8 electric ratchet just to speed up some of the hardware removal and installation. And as always, some flashlights. Now we have our tools covered, let's get started with this DIY.
All right, let's get started.
Before we get started, I like to always go ahead and check out the fluid reservoir for our brakes. This one's a little bit past the max flow line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove a little. To get started, we're going to go ahead and remove our wheel. You're going to need a 19mm. Now to get started, we're going to start by undoing our brake pad wear sensor. To get that bolt out, I'm just using a 10mm socket.
So I've decided to switch to this head cam.
Rotor set screws just so that they can loosen up a little bit before we get to anything further. And then give it a couple whacks to kind of shock it and hopefully break any corrosion free. Now with that undone, we can work on getting these pads out of here.
But at this point, I'd already taken out the pads, but I forgot to record it. So we'll skip that part and go on to removing the calipers.
Now we're going to work on removing our caliper. So again, a T55 for the old hardware. Now I'm going to take my caliper hooks from earlier, and usually that does the trick.
Damn!
Before we assemble anything, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my hub here. I have a small wire brush. You can use a wire wheel on a drill. I'm going to go ahead and take my rotor and just slip it over. You don't want to get this too grimy because due to the zinc coating, you don't want to go ahead and brake clean it. You'll go ahead and ruin the coating. Now we can go ahead and put our new shims into the calipers. You can't mix them up. They only go in one way.
Sorry guys, I forgot to record me inserting the pads into the caliper, but trust me, I put them in. So we'll skip to tightening up the calipers.
Now we're going to take our new retaining clip, kind of get it into place, take our new pin and start feeding it through, and install your new cotter pin that comes with it as well. Next on our list, before we forget about it, is that
Alright guys, I did put the 10mm bolt back in, and I did put the brake sensor back in. I just forgot to record it at the time of filming this. But trust me, I'm not driving around with a missing 10mm bolt and the brake sensor.
Speed that in there. Hook it onto the new clip.
Right, so that was the fronts done. I did do the rears, but I felt there was no point dragging this video to be any longer than it was. The fronts and the rears were pretty much the same, so it was the same sort of tear down on the rear. So we're just going to fast forward through this. I would say that the rears were a lot easier to do than the fronts. They took a lot less time. And then I just repeated the same process on the other side. So yeah, I didn't feel it was necessary to go into recording and capturing all of that. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it was a pretty easy job. Okay, so I've finished the brake change. Now let's go out and test drive the car, make sure it feels okay. But yeah, you can potentially do a brake change by watching YouTube channel videos on it, but it ain't without its pitfalls. There's a lot of variables that could basically crop up and make things a little bit more difficult, like seized bolts or rounded bolts. And yeah, you definitely have to be a bit careful. Yes, you can do it. It is possible. I just proved it. So if you're thinking about doing any maintenance, definitely do a little YouTube Google search for a video and ask around for advice, and you could possibly save yourself some money by doing the work yourself. Anyway, let's go out for a drive, check these brakes, make sure they're okay. Right guys, first impressions on the brakes. Well, obviously I need to give them some time to bed in, but they feel great so far. Just sort of plodding around town, plodding around my local neighborhood. They are a lot better than what was previously in the car. The brakes that I had, there was like a lip on the disc, and the pads were completely worn down to pretty much nothing. So yeah, they would definitely do a change, and these are way much better. Big shout to Design 911 for sending the Brembo discs and pads, and a big shout to FCP Auto YouTube channel for putting together that tutorial. I really appreciate it, and yeah, it really worked. Great explanation, great detail, and thanks for laying out all the tools as well. I probably wouldn't have known what tool to use if you hadn't had done that. So yeah, Ferrari. Chase it. Anyway guys, that's all we got time for. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care. Peace.